Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the Wednesday webinar with the Property Law Alliance. I hope everyone is doing well. And then welcome, Selma and Bruno.
Hi,
How are you
Marlene.
guys doing?
Yeah, very well, thanks.
And you, Selma?
Very good, thanks. Nice to be back. I missed you guys last week, but
Yeah.
happy to be back again. It was super entertaining. I actually watched you. I'm like, yay! I liked it and everything.
Oh, that's great. Yeah, welcome back. And then we're going to have a quick Wednesday webinar today for all our viewers. It's the virtual property show this weekend, and Silna and Bruno is very busy preparing for that and recording. They both also have stands at the show and a joint talk about evictions. So please join us this weekend on the virtual property show. It will definitely be worth it. And then we can get to the questions.
I think it's 2:30.
Yes, our talk is on Saturday, 2:30. I think we're talking about evictions, and then I have a talk on Friday on do's and don'ts of lease agreements. No idea what time it is, but I think we will anyway share everything to the page and the group anyway. Absolutely. And then Bruno, you have a very interesting other talk as well on investments. What is that?
Yeah, so I've got the one on Friday for the law firm, which is just around property investments and the law around it, OTPs and that sort of thing. And then I'm doing one with Intergen, which is like wealth planning and preservation and like structuring, it's a structuring the transactions, structuring the entities, that sort of thing. So that's going to be fun.
That's brilliant. Yeah, I must say, I know you and I have both been running around. We did our joint recording yesterday at TPN Studio, and Shane, you were struggling a little there with an injury. So I think between the two of us, it's actually pretty impressive how quickly we're running. But it would be fantastic if attendance to the virtual property show is for free. So we will post everything to the page and the group. Please join. I suspect all our viewers are typically people that would find the virtual property show extremely informative and helpful. But bear with us because it's the first virtual property show we're doing. So I think all of us are just, the technical term here is winging the living daylights out of it and doing it at a major speed.
Absolutely.
All right, perfect. Thank you so much for that. Yes, it will definitely be worth it. So for all our viewers, join us this weekend. Then we can go on to the questions that we have. So first, we received a question on the group, which I'm quickly going to read to you guys. He says, please, I need your advice. I've lived in Randburg for over a year, not on a monthly rental. I usually pay my rent up front and at the beginning of each month, but unfortunately, I won't be able to afford for October, beginning the 1st of October, as I was paid very little commission this month. My landlord is not aware as yet, and I don't know what approach to make. I only got my deposit with her. Please advise. Thank you. I haven't notified my landlord. All right. So I think, Silna, if you maybe want to get us started on that one.
Why? Because I raised my brow higher than Bruno.
Because you missed last week, so it's your turn now.
Yeah, you get all the questions this week.
I'm getting punished. Sis, it was my birthday. I'm still writing it. It's been like 2 weeks ago. Okay, no. So, unfortunately, this happens to a lot of people. A tenant that runs into a situation where he can't pay his rent. Unfortunately, I know I'm going to sound very cold now, but the truth is you have an obligation in terms of your lease agreement to pay your rent. No landlord ever has an obligation to provide free accommodation to a tenant, regardless of the reason why the tenant is unable to pay rent. Now, I'll take it a little bit further, and I'm actually going to touch on constitutional case law. I'm specifically referring to Blue Moonlight Properties. It's actually sad that we don't have Greg tonight because he was the attorney of record on that particular matter. But Blue Moonlight Properties is one of the most well-known constitutional court cases when it comes to alternative accommodation and providing accommodation to somebody that will be left homeless and destitute should they be evicted. Now, I appreciate that the viewer isn't getting evicted. It's simply a proactive question on what do I do if I can't pay rent? But I'm doing a long way around because I'm a lawyer and that's what I do. I can't just give yes or no answers. So the reason why I'm bringing up Blue Moonlight Properties is Blue Moonlight Properties specifically places the obligation of providing alternative accommodation on the municipality. It's a government obligation, and it's not from some of the other act. It's a constitutional obligation on the municipality to provide accommodation should somebody be left homeless and destitute. In that particular case, the court deals with the obligation to provide accommodation in a lot of detail. And the truth of the matter is, no private citizen will ever be obliged to provide another citizen with accommodation, ever. That is a horizontal relationship between parties, and you can't be required to provide accommodation in any way. The obligation is a virtual one between government and citizens, not between citizens. So a tenant that can't pay rent, regardless of the reason, the only option you have, if you can't find a solution or you can't make a plan to get that rent paid, the correct thing to do is to approach the landlord and say, listen, I can't afford my rent anymore, and offer to vacate and then vacate the premises. That's your only option when you can't pay rent. And I started by saying this is going to be ice queen kind of answers. But unfortunately, the law has to be called and the law has to be clinical, because if it's not, and we have to consider everybody's detailed circumstances, eventually we're going to end up with landlords selling their rental properties, because why would you invest in rental property if you end up having to provide people with accommodation for free? It makes no sense. And so as much as I am extremely empathetic towards the viewer that asked the question, I appreciate that a lot of people can't afford rent right now, but it's already the 30th of September. Your rent is unfortunately due tomorrow morning. It has to be paid and cleared in your landlord's account by tomorrow morning, the 1st of October. If it is not, you are in breach of your lease agreement. Your landlord must then place you on terms by sending you a letter of demand, giving you either 7 or 20 business days to pay your rent. And if you do not pay your full rent, unfortunately, that lease agreement can be cancelled and you can then be evicted. Communication is key. And Bruno, I think I'm going to pass the ball to you pretty much now, because I do believe communication is absolutely key. There's a lot of landlords that would really appreciate a tenant that comes to them to say, listen, this month I'm a commission earner. This month my commission is very low, but here is my deals that I've done through September. So this will be my commission income for October. Sign an AOD, that sort of it. But negotiations and how to deal with that situation. Am I being overly cold? Do you have another suggestion?
Look, aside from negotiating, I mean, there's a sense of credibility that comes behind a tenant that approaches you with a plan of action. The same thing occurs to us when even clients approach us. Any business that sends out invoices, waits for payment, nothing happens. 3 months later, for some reason you haven't followed up until then, you follow up again, and the client starts ducking your calls. What does that mean? That generally means that there isn't a sense of like respectful reciprocation between both sides. If a client phones me up within 1 week of me sending an invoice and goes, listen, whatever, this property transaction didn't happen, what I'm going to do is I have this one in the pipeline, it's going to happen, I can pay you at this point, I'm a lot more likely to accept that, to believe it, and to enter into an arrangement with the client. I've done it numerous times, for example, where I've seen that a client has a history of being able to get these property transactions across the line and where money's coming in. I mean, as attorneys, we do it all the time, especially with conveyancing departments that are linked to our litigation departments. Very often we've got clients where they're not going to pay us for this invoice today, but we know in 3 weeks' time they're going to have a registration. The point of that is you get a sense of credibility and accountability when the clients are open about it, and when you have that sense of security. If you as a tenant ignore this, hope that nothing will happen, hope that the landlord won't notice, that the money won't be in his bank account tomorrow, you're actually pushing buttons. And it's just so funny the difference 1 minute can make, 1 hour can make, a day can make. Because if you approach it at the right point now, and you're open, you're sincere, and you also have a plan of action, because I'm sorry to say this, as sympathetic as we all are, especially during COVID, it's been a long, long 7 months, right? Everyone's struggled. Everyone has struggled. So it's not to say that we shouldn't be human to each other, sure. But I think as part of being human, the party that's going to ask or plea also needs to come to the table with something. It shouldn't just be a question of, I don't have money.
Yes.
And that's it. What are you going to do? Certainly you have to have money. You have to survive some other way. Why am I so far down the list of priorities that I'm not getting anything out of this? Like, what is happening? What is your plan? What sort of income are you going to make? Okay, fine, you don't have money, but then you can move out because then you're living beyond your means. There's always something that can be done. And exactly what you said, a person that works with commission, show us, for example, as a landlord, where the commission is going to come from, why there's a delay. There's no point saying I work off commission, but when we look at your accrued commission, it's not going to be enough to cover the rent. You're going to sign an acknowledgement of debt. It needs to make financial sense. But if you actually put this together as a package and go, look here, this is the commission, this is how it's accrued, this is when it's payable. These guys have always shown proof of payment. Here's an AOD that says that I'm going to pay X on this date, Y on this date, and Z on that date. I think the landlord's a lot more likely to negotiate or to accept that, as opposed to when you don't do something like that. Remember, a landlord doesn't have to, but a landlord is still human. So now play on that and make sure that when you do approach them, you've structured it in a proper way.
Yeah, I agree, especially to your point of it's not like you can't pay anything, and I find that quite often with tenants that we evict, they are short by like whatever, anything from 500 to 5,000, 50,000 rand on their rental. But instead of paying then what they can, they just pay nothing. And I think that's the problem, because what I'm seeing is once a tenant skips 1 month's rent, then it's pretty much donesies, because you won't ever make that up, not a full month's rent. So if you have to short pay, talk to the landlord, negotiate upfront, pay as much as you possibly can. Yes, that might mean that you won't be able to go out for one dinner or whatever. Whatever your personal circumstances is, I do not know. But your rent must be as high a priority as basically food, because it is basic needs. You need accommodation, you need food. Pay for that, and the luxuries can come later.
Yeah, absolutely. So sorry, just on that point, the one thing that we've warned about before, but I suppose this is the right time to mention it. When you are entering into agreements, always bear in mind, you need to do it properly. If you're entering into an agreement where someone's going to vacate the property after a certain period of time, remember, you cannot simply lock the door when that agreement lapses and that time comes. Even if the person fails to move out, but you've agreed 2 months, you give them 2 months and they don't move out, you still need to apply for the eviction. So guys, be careful. If you enter into an agreement that's too far ahead into the future, maybe consider starting the eviction process now, making that agreement an order of court now, because 3 months is a long time. And if you feel, have even the inkling of a doubt that this person won't move out, because they've given you trouble in the past, and we've had this plenty of times, is please pay. Yeah, no, I'll pay. and they keep promising, and eventually you get them to agree to move out. This guy's 6 months in arrears or 3 months in arrears. Now all of a sudden the next thing that they're saying is they're going to move out. Sometimes it doesn't happen. If you're in doubt, you can start the eviction proceedings now, get them to agree, put it into the actual application, go to court, make it an order of court. Worst case scenario, they don't move out, you're already in court, so you just take an order and there you go, you're done. Best case scenario, I suppose, is look, you're in court, but the guys do move out. Yes, unfortunately, you've paid for it, but what's your loss in rental if they stay on the property and you now need to wait a further 3 months? I suppose it depends. If it's a property in Bryanston of 20,000 Rand, 30,000 Rand a month, do it. If it's a 2,000 Rand unit somewhere, fine. You know what? Maybe it's not worth it. But consider it. At least have it at the back of your mind.
Agree.
Thank you. All right. Is there anything else that you guys want to add? I think that is about the time that we have this evening. But we do understand that you guys are also busy preparing and everything. So yeah, if there's any last thoughts from your side.
No, I think there is going to be a few more questions, especially after the weekend, Bruno.
Yeah.
I think we specifically make reference to the Property Law Alliance, and please keep those questions coming. Otherwise, we have to think of questions, and we're not always fantastic with that. But thank you for all the questions. I do appreciate that we don't deal with each and every question that we receive, but please keep them coming. And I'm so sorry we're cutting it short tonight, but I think everybody is in a way grateful. Apparently we need to prepare for a storm in Joburg.
Yeah.
I heard, yes, yeah.
Me and my weather talks.
Oh, shy. All right. But thank you so much, guys, for joining us. And then have a lovely evening. Good luck with everything and keep safe.
Cool. Cheers, guys.
Right. All
Bye-bye.
right. Bye.
Bye.